So imagine you open up TikTok or Instagram, scroll down, and you see a video of a woman drinking matcha and doing Pilates in a color coded outfit. Then you scroll down a few more minutes, you see another, and a fifth, and a tenth, all in the space of, say, 20 minutes. And these videos, they look exactly the same. The camera work, the style, the setting. You feel like you're watching the same person over and over again, but it's a different person. And you keep watching over and over and over. There's tiny variations. Maybe one video is pastel pink, another is pastel blue, etc., etc. Maybe they have a reusable matcha cup. Maybe they make their own matcha. Maybe their Pilates is in the grass, or in the trees, or in some high rise in New York City. On and on it goes. Say you keep scrolling. Say you get out of the matcha Pilates circle, you find a video about books, and you hear a book being described. You scroll down, you hear another book described, and another, and another. And they all start to feel the same. The same tropes, the same pitch, the same enemies to lovers, or friendly companions, or up to and including problematic tropes. Over and over it goes. Same tropes, same character traits, the same descriptions. And this is 10, 15 different videos, over and over, one after another, all from different authors, different backgrounds, different ages, different skill levels. But they're all marketing you the same thing. Because content and media as a whole has become quite repetitive in notion. And this is a problem. This was originally going to be a How to Train Your Dragon video about the power of franchises and the impact of the live action remake. Subscribe if you're interested in seeing more videos like that. But what ended up happening was I saw a meme about all the movies coming out next year. And this is important because this year, my friends and I, we see a lot of movies in the summer. We go on Tuesday when it's cheap. And we haven't seen that many movies. We saw Superman. We saw the live action How to Train Your Dragon. Sadly, we were too busy to see Final Destination Bloodlines, even though Richard Harmon was in it. But anyway, we haven't seen that many movies this summer. And it's weird because usually we see a lot of movies. Usually there's a lot of great movies. Last fall, we saw quite a lot of movies. Were they good movies? No, they were horrible movies. They were really bad horror movies. But we saw a lot of movies. We enjoyed it. It was $5. We didn't care. And when I saw this list of all the movies coming out next year, I started thinking to myself, this is absurd. Because all of these movies in this sort of meme format, like picture, and I'd heard about a lot of these, but I hadn't seen them all at once before, were sequels, or remakes, or prequels, or spin-offs, or the third, or the fifth, or this film that was made 10, 15, 20 years ago that is now getting remade, or is getting made again, or is getting a sequel. Like The Devil Wears Prada 2, or Spider-Man Brand New Day, which most of us thought would never come out at this point. And I'm not complaining about getting more Spider-Man content. I'm not complaining about getting more Tom Holland and Zendaya in Spider-Man universe. I'm not. I love that. I've been seeing the set videos from Brand New Day, and I'm so excited. It looks amazing. The fact that they're filming in Glasgow is so cool. But it's important to recognize that the only things that's seemingly coming out next year, at least mainstream, are all sequels and remakes and spinoffs. There was one movie that I heard about that's being made called The Dreadful, and it's starring Sophie Turner and Kit Harington, and it's like this gothic horror romance set during the War of the Roses. And I'm so excited for that movie. I think that's going to be amazing. I love seeing Game of Thrones actors with other Game of Thrones actors in other stuff. I think it's hilarious. One of my favorite films of all time is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, where Tyrion Lannister and Cersei Lannister are both in it, and they're so freaking funny in it. It's got Matt Smith. I'll make a video about it. Even The Dreadful, even this original thing, this original project, I wasn't excited about it because it was an original project. I was excited about it because it had Sophie Turner and Kit Harington in the War of the Roses, meaning I could make Game of Thrones edits off of the footage. This is a new film, but this new film doesn't have a release date yet. We don't know when it's coming out because new films, new projects, new shows, things that aren't related to other things are not advertised as much. They aren't hyped up as much. They aren't viewed with the same importance because the way media has crafted itself, it is that everything must always be like something that came before it. No exceptions. And I'm not saying that I am morally better. I'm not saying that I am a perfect connoisseur of media that only consumes original content. I don't. I really don't. I love sequels and continuations. I miss when shows got 22 episodes, 7 seasons. The other day, it was the 5-year anniversary of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ending, which is my favorite show of all time. And this show had 7 seasons, the first 5 of which had 22 episodes. The 100th episode was the wedding of my favorite couple. And I remember I was so happy. And I'm like, damn, there's still 12 episodes left of this season. I'm doomed. And it was great. It was a great season. And I love lengthy continuations. When Chris Colfer announced, it might have been last week or the week before, God's summer is just flying by, that The Land of Stories would be getting a film adaptation, I was so excited. I ran onto Instagram to post about it and to prepare my friends, new who don't understand how much I love The Land of Stories, and old, how much I'm going to make them see that film with me. And I'm not saying that it's a problem for there to be sequels or remakes or franchises. I like a franchise. I think a franchise is great. I like a series. I think a series is great. I rarely, if ever, read a standalone book. But it's not just this idea of franchises and sequels and that got into my head. It's this idea that, like I said at the beginning of the video, this tendency of media to repackage or remake things that they know work and make money, as, Hollywood, a business, tends to do, has spread into the realm of individual social media creation. And this is a problem, I think, because it creates this echo chamber of similarity. This idea that your writing, your art, your content, be it lifestyle or travel or whatever it may be, must be curated, must be the same as everyone else's. That in order to be successful, you must be a copy, a carbon copy, an echo chamber of other people. And I want to get into this very quickly. If you didn't already guess, the point of this video is that nothing is original anymore. And for those of you who might be writers or readers or people who are familiar with literature or have ever remembered their English classes from high school or college, this is not a new concept. Most literature is not original. It's the reason why copyright lawsuits often get very sticky. Because in order to claim copyright infringement, you often have to get past a certain level of tropes, a certain level of plausible deniability, if you will. Twilight is, love it or hate it, a very influential book. But it is also a very trope-filled book. And therefore, many, many books, right following Twilight, decided to take many of its tropes and create their own. Some of them to better success than others. Some of them were just literal serial filed off fan fiction, but I don't have time to complain about that today. That's a different video altogether. And copyright infringement is something I feel very strongly about. And I actually have a couple videos planned about AI and copyright infringement, which I had some great news about the other day. So that might be maybe early September when that's coming out. Subscribe if you're interested in seeing that. And love it or hate it, again, you cannot claim copyright infringement for the 20-something Twilight knockoff series that came right after Twilight because they use the same tropes. The same way Sarah J. Maas, who arguably is the, I'd say, direct continuation of Stephenie Meyer when it comes to influential romance. I could rant about Sarah J. Maas. I'm currently reading Throne of Glass. I'm not going to rant about Sarah J. Maas. I won't, I promise. But trends and tropes have always been the way of market media. There were quite a few interesting trends in the late 2000s. There was the Twilight for Guys trend, which was all these sort of Twilight-esque movies about this one guy who, had power. A couple of them, and one had Hayden Christensen in it, which is actually kind of funny. There was the late 2000s trend of sort of like whimsical fantasy. You had Secrets of Moonacre, my favorite film. You had Inkheart, you had Stardust, you had The Bridge to Terabithia, which isn't really fantasy, but it sort of fits in there. And this was born out of previous success. This was born out of Pirates of the Caribbean. This was born out of Harry Potter and Narnia. And the things that were successful in the early 2000s launching other things that were successful in the later 2000s. And the trend cycles usually go 5 to 10 years. The problem is that the trend cycles have stopped going 5 to 10 years and become continuous. They have become cycles that will never die. And you see this a lot with shows and with books. If they go on too long, the writing quality declines. The best example of this is Grey's Anatomy. You will not find someone currently watching Grey's Anatomy who is a fan since the beginning, who is not only staying because they are in too deep and they cannot comprehend getting out now. The writing quality of that show fluctuates drastically. But most people who liked the original show have a certain point where they're like, I can't watch anymore. I'm too much. What have you done? And that is what I think has happened with media in general and with a lot of these elements of media and with a lot of parts of modern media. And I'm not saying this is bad, but I am saying the fact that Marvel and DC and Star Wars and Harry Potter are seemingly the, sucking, they just never die. They just suck. And the companies that own these rights to these characters and these stories are obsessed with recreating the magic that they previously had. Harry Potter was a wildly successful film franchise. And Warner Brothers is so obsessed with recreating that magic that instead of doing what, ironically, HBO, which is owned by Warner Brothers, is doing with House of the Dragon and Knight of the Seven Kingdoms and the Aegon the Conqueror show, instead of creating spin-offs, backstory, things that the people who enjoy your franchise, who enjoyed Game of Thrones before you ruined it. I'm not going to get into a David and Dan are idiots rant today. Don't worry, that's a different video. They are doing what is objectively better. And there are issues with House of the Dragon. Oh, I could make videos on House of the Dragon, but I won't. And because of those issues, they decided to make spin-offs. Why in the world did Warner Brothers go, we're going to make Harry Potter the show, when that wasn't people's problems with the films? People like the films. The first few films are really well received, even later films. They did wonderfully. You know what you should have done instead if you really wanted to milk the Harry Potter cash cow? Made a Marauders prequel. Made a Founders prequel. Made a random story about Voldemort. If you had made a show about Voldemort in young Voldemort, and you cast Louis Partridge as young Voldemort, you would make millions. You would latch on to the people. There are people currently publishing Draco Malfoy fan fiction as novels and selling out. Okay, it's like Ali Hazelwood. Ali Hazelwood publishing Reylo fan fiction as her contemporary novels and selling out. She's a bestseller. There is Harry Potter fan fiction currently on the market that is bestseller. There has been Draco Malfoy fan fiction on the market that is bestseller since 2007, okay? Well, I am not too prideful to admit that The Mortal Instruments, one of my favorite book series, painfully enough, was partly based off of Cassandra Clare's Draco Malfoy fanfiction. This is a fact. But these companies don't get that it is not simply the same thing repackaged 20 times that interests people. Tropes and trends interest people. And I have issues with, again, the fact that book talk marketing makes everything the same. And over and over and over again. I'm not blind to that. But those books are at least sometimes slightly different. Those books at least often have some alterations. They have variants. I will genuinely read an enemies to lovers fantasy novel until the sun dies. I will. I love it. If you give me a smart, physically capable, book reading, vaguely powerful, be he royal, be he pirate, be he noble, be he, just rich, male love interest in a fantasy book, and I will worship him. It's just a fact of life. It is a fact of life. But that does not mean that should be all we get in media. This is why, honestly, the fact that the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake was fine. Wasn't bad. Slight changes. It was decent. It was fine. I did not care. But this is why, when I was watching it, it reminded me of the last live action remake that I watched that I had no negative feeling towards. And that was 2015 Cinderella. It has been 10 years of Disney live action remakes. And I have been watching Lindsay Ellis video essays complaining about live action remakes for 8 years. Actually, no, 9. 9 years. Because I think Dumbo was 2016. Was Dumbo 2016? I think Dumbo was 2016. And this, I think, is a sign of the fact, this is a fact of life, Hollywood is slow. And social media has made Hollywood even slower. Hollywood does not catch up with that. Kevin Feige recently admitting that he messed up MCU Phase 4. He was slow to do that. He was trying to correct, he's course correcting, he's trying to deal with this. And a lot of other groups, other studios, other television shows are trying to course correct from sort of problems that they caused themselves. But Disney isn't, and Warner Brothers, and I think this is a problem that we keep seeing, is the fact that quite early on in the saga of Disney live action remakes, people started complaining. The quality of these films started declining, but people still went to see them. They still made hundreds of millions of dollars globally per film. They still returned on investment. And this, I think, is the problem. Because We often talk, or well, I often talk and I often see people talking on social media. There is a discussion quite frequently that rage content gets you more views, and that's a fact. But there's also a discussion that if you make a video like someone else's, quite close but different enough that you're not technically copyright infringing, taking the tropes of this person, taking the filming techniques of this person, and you make it yourself, you add the same tags, you will get the same views. And that is to an extent a fact. The algorithm pushes content like itself. It pushes similarity. It does not push individuality. It does not push uniqueness. It pushes similarity. It pushes repetition. And this cosm in social media cannot simply be blamed on the algorithms because mass media, Hollywood studios, started this first. The repetition of tropes began in Hollywood and they began in literature, but they worsened on social media to the point in which genuinely it is absurd how similar so many of these people I see on social media are. And I try to curate my algorithm to not show me that sort of repetitive content. I don't have TikTok, which I know the algorithm is way harder to program. And another inspiration for this, I'm kind of jumping around, is the romantasy of it all. Because love or hate Sarah J. Maas, and I have many feelings for her. She was quite original. I'm reading Throne of Glass right now. It is quite original. There are quite a lot of changes, a lot of details, and while I have many issues with the Fae, so many issues, I could make an essay on my issues, and I won't even read ACOTAR, which I know makes it worse. But Sarah J. Maas is creative. She is inventive. She is clever. I know things that she's done in later books that are very clever, that are very creative. She is a fixture in fantasy, but the people that follow her are echoes. They are echoing. And this isn't to say that literature is bad. This isn't to say that making things like other things is bad. Tolkien launched a genre. George R. R. Martin responded to that and basically further launched the genre. Frank Herbert helped launch a genre. Roger Zelazny helped launch genres. These are creative authors. J.K. Rowling launched arguably modern YA fantasy. Many tropes in Sarah J. Maas, in Cassandra Clare, in Leigh Bardugo even, can be traced back to Harry Potter. A common one is Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. They have many similarities, but it's confirmed, okay? But many tropes, many ideas, many aesthetics popularized, not just in Harry Potter, but by the Harry Potter fandom and by other fandoms at the time, led to, I think, the current problem in romantasy. The problem that those ideas originally, morphed and changed, but there was creativity, there was passion behind them. Love them or hate them. The authors of all of the books that I have mentioned here had creativity. They had imagination, they had goals. The modern collection of romantasy musts, with some exceptions, Holly Black is a great writer. I love Holly Black. I love The Cruel Prince. I think it's a great book. But these things that best sell out, or these books that people read and then they are disappointed when they are bad because the author wrote them to follow up a trend, because the author wrote them to be ACOTAR but different, to be the next bestseller. They have shallow world building. They have shallow creativity. And I'm not saying that you are bad for liking them. You can like them. You can like tropes. You can like objectively bad literature. I like bad shark movies. My mother and I have seen them all. I have seen Sharknado, Six-Headed Shark, Atomic Shark, Sharkula, House Shark. I have seen films so bad you cannot comprehend with shark in the title. I have seen shark concepts you wouldn't believe. They're not good. They're bad. They have the same tropes. Oh, it's 10 minutes in? Time for the woman in the bikini to get eaten gruesomely. That is a fact. That is what's going to happen in these films. And that is okay. That is fine to enjoy this type of media. But when this type of media is the only thing being pushed, the only thing making money, when obsessions with tropes and being exactly the same as your predecessor is so continuous that we get nothing original, that we get nothing unique, we get no new stories, we get sequels and remakes and prequels. And I love prequels and sequels and remakes, but I don't want only them. I don't want another Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't want another Mamma Mia. Well, actually, I kind of do because I think that cast is really fun, but my point still stands. I want new ideas. I want new stories. I want creativity to return. I want media to stop being obsessed with repetition. And this is sadly not where we are right now. In the end, it's kind of hard to say that I want to change the way media is while also admitting that I do enjoy my sequels and my prequels. But I think it's also important to recognize that this should not be all we have in media. This should not be all there is. The only thing making money should not be next year. There are going to be so many sequels. I'm worried to see which will gross the most. The fact that there's making a Frozen 3. Oh, one of my neighbors is just running down the street, shirtless, singing. Yikes. In the end, originality is necessary. And when it comes out, when there is something original, or at least close to original, we like it. Stranger Things, love or hate how it currently is original. It is an original concept. It is an original concept that is Netflix's best show ever. It is amazing. It is originality. It has flaws. Yes, but everything has flaws. But it is original. It is new. It is clever. It is well written. I am reading a book right now, Immortal Consequences. It has tropes, sure, but the magic system is original. The world building is new. The writer clearly cares about the story she has put out there. Even Wednesday, being an Addams Family adaptation, is still quite original. It is a inspirational adaptation, if you will. I kind of lump it in with Secrets of Moonacre, which is in theory based off of the book The White Horse, but is quite different from its source material. And that is beautiful. The fact that originality is successful, the fact that new ideas, that creative ideas can be successful, should show social media influencers and Hollywood companies and everyone that we, as consumers of media, that readers, writers, watchers, people who enjoy fictional stories and worlds, want original ideas. We don't want the 10th medical show. We don't want the 25th season of Grey's Anatomy. We don't want the 50th MCU reboot. We want something new. And that, I think, is another reason that shows like Stranger Things do so well, because they are new, because they are interesting. The shows that people remember, that launch genres, that launch constant attempts to follow them up, were remembered because they were new. When Game of Thrones came onto the scene, big budget fantasy didn't exist. The most fantasy you had on TV was Buffy. Or, worse so, The Vampire Diaries, with bad CGI and contemporary settings. Game of Thrones changed that. And shows before Game of Thrones changed the network in similar ways. In the end, we need to remember that originality, creativity, that is what makes media interesting. That is what makes someone stand out. You may get the most views for being the 27,000th matcha drinking, Pilates doing, matching outfit social media influencer in New York City, but you won't be creating something unique to yourself. You won't be creating something worthy of being remembered. The greatest artists and creatives in history were often considered pariahs of the time. Vincent van Gogh, my favorite artist, barely made any money off of his works that are now so reverent that they are shown at the center of museums. He has his own museum in Amsterdam. His art is precious to me and to millions, if not billions, of other people. It transcends language, but it did not follow the conventions or tropes of the time. It followed some, sure. His color palettes matched many of other contemporaries. But we need to remember, art does not have to be meaningful to you. You don't have to want to make art for some grandiose statement. But if you are consuming content or creating content, you should want that content to be unique to you, not just devoted to the tropes or responses of the time. And that is what we should be remembering. Creativity, imagination, is not repackaging the same thing over and over again. Media should not be one story repackaged about a billion times. It should be a story inspired by a story inspired by a story, just like media and art and creativity have been for centuries.